A great concept which carries a noble message but somewhat spoilt by slow movement. This is Beyond Eyes. It's an indie adventure title with no real gameplay elements. It definitely falls under the walking simulator tag as you don't really make any choices and there isn't any failure mode. It follows the story of a little girl who lost her eyesight in an accident involving fireworks. She now spends her time in her garden playing with a cat called Nanny. When Nanny stops turning up one day, she decides to venture out of the garden and find out where Nanny is. As a concept, this game is fantastic. The basic principle is that you can't see the world as it actually is. Instead, you're stuck with whatever interpretation this little girl has using her remaining senses. The primary sense being touch as she walks around raising her hands to try and feel the surroundings, and it slowly builds up an image of the environment. Once you've explored an area, it remains visible, but can end up patchy. It's almost like an extreme version of Fog of War. It tends to mean that you're skirting around the edges of levels trying to find your way out, as there is only one way out of each area. Everything else is blocked by walls, fences, piles of rubble, you name it. It's not entirely linear though, as you can explore the environment a bit and find extra little activities to do, though these tend to be little more than short animations, which although cute, really aren't worth looking for, some of which consist of playing with dogs, feeding cows and chasing chickens. But you do also have other little nuggets of information provided by your other senses every now and then, such as when the birds chirp in the distance they briefly become visible while the sound is there, and the same when you can smell the bread in the area. These senses can travel through walls, so if you try and head straight towards them, you'll probably wander into fences and other obstacles blocking the way. The best part about this aspect, in my opinion, is that you can actually misinterpret what some of the sounds and smells are, such as when you're walking towards what appears to be a fountain as you can hear running water, and it ends up being a sewer pipe. It shows a gentle and positive but naive side to the girl. Unfortunately, I can't say that this game is carried the full way by its concept, despite the cute nature of the environment, the interesting storyline, and the important message that it sends about blindness, due to some of the other mechanic choices made. The biggest of these is the unbelievably slow pace that the character moves at. It's unbearable and takes forever to explore the environment, and because of this you lose the will to explore, as if it means going out of your way you're going to have to spend all that time walking back again, watching her slowly plod around. Except you don't always have a choice in the matter as you're limited by your vision, so the environment essentially becomes a maze with one exit and you have to walk down all of the dead ends and avenues trying to find the one that you finally need to be in. This means there's a lot of backtracking and even more slow plodding. The slow movement really damages the experience as there is no option to run around. I realise this was probably chosen because she was blind, but even if it meant every so often she tripped over and caused an injury which meant you couldn't run for a short while, an option to run would add a huge amount of enjoyment to playing the game. The sounds are well chosen and the soundtrack is also very fitting to the game. It doesn't outstay its welcome, allowing you to listen to the environment and try and work out what's going on, and potentially try and use your other senses to find your way through. And graphically it looks fantastic with an almost watercolour edge to the style, with plenty of colour variety. The swirls which indicate which sense is building the image is a particularly nice touch, as you get to see a pinky purple swirl when you're walking around representing the touch, yellow represents smells, and a green glow surrounds the sounds. You don't get a huge amount of game for your money. It only took me about 2 hours to complete it, and I even went back to a couple of sections to have a look for some of the additional activities, which means there's virtually nothing to the game on the whole, as 75% of this time is wandering around in circles very slowly. It seems almost like they were scared to release a short game, so they made her walk really slowly to make up for the lack of content. That's the impression I was left with, as there is no other reason why you would choose to make the game as slow as this. I can't recommend this as a game, as I was practically falling asleep for the vast majority of the time. When you're watching the little cutscenes and building on the actual story, it's very good, but it's such a small portion that it leaves you wanting. But I would still be very intrigued by other games that explore this kind of limited sense gameplay, as it has the potential to teach a lot of valuable lessons about acceptance. The amount of game time isn't as important as making the game worth playing.